The last video I made about Sheffield Wednesday was titled, "Is Sheffield Wednesday Owner Nightmare About to End?" No. Absolutely no. Hard no. Violent no. 1,000 times no. There did seem like there was some cause for optimism about a week ago when I made that video, but unfortunately things have not got better, and as tends to be the pattern with Mr. Chansiri and Sheffield Wednesday, things have got worse since we made that video, and I'm afraid it's back to the tone of misery when it comes to Sheffield Wednesday. Get your thoughts in the comments throughout. I will explain what has gone down since. But first of all, why was I optimistic? Some people will just write in the comments, because you're an idiot, Ben. Well, maybe two things can be true. Maybe I'm an optimistic idiot, but rewatch the video. Back end of last week, we had Danny Roll, who has glued the club together really and produced two very decent managerial performances in his kind of 2 seasons there, or not even 2 full seasons there over at Sheffield Wednesday. He was going to be coming back, which I thought was good news. And this broker that Mr. Chansiri had employed to sell the club, an actual adult in the room maybe, had 3 bidders and the bids had been accepted. So my brain's going, okay, great. Best case scenario here, we'll get a quick sale to a good owner. They're going to come in, they're going to clear the decks, they're going to clear the depths, the embargoes will get lifted, and Sheffield Wednesday might be able to go into the season with Danny Roll in the dugout, some players left over, and the chance to build forth to a new and happy future. Well, since then, we've had problems with the manager. The takeover's fallen through apparently, and the squad is now getting more and more threadbare, as maybe some of these players were looking at it like I was and waiting for a signal something good was about to happen, and now the exodus, in the words of Bob Marley, is very, very real. Let's talk about those players who've gone out. So Gassama and Musaba, who were 2 young wingers, I think they might both have come in before Danny Roll was hired. Do you remember that weird transfer window where Darren Moore... we just talk about it like it's just normal when it comes to Sheffield Wednesday, but when Mr. Chansiri fired the manager who'd got him promoted from League One, sat in a press conference with his new manager, Cisco Munoz, and kind of made it all about him, delayed signing anybody for forever and a day, and then signed a load of players towards the end of the window. Anyway, those 2 players who'd been quite good, and both young players, come from the continent, have been developed, particularly Gassama at the end of last season was really kind of standing up as being a good player. Well, he's gone to Rangers, Gassama, and Musaba has gone to a Turkish club whose name I won't try and pronounce. And this is what happens, I'm afraid. I've referenced my club, Ipswich, going into administration in 2002, and it's a brutal game. Other clubs will come immediately and take whatever assets are there at very, very low value. They're not going to have to do that with these next 2, because Michael Smith and Josh Windass, it was announced last night, have left the club by mutual consent. I'm not sure what was much mutual about it, and I'm interested in the minutiae of this particular thing, because obviously we've had issues with late payment and non-payment of salary, and I thought those issues had been sorted out, and we've heard lots about a specific amount of delay to put the contract in breach, which meant players could basically just hand in their notice and walk away from the club. So apparently Sheffield Wednesday's players are now able to do that. Look, I haven't read a single football contract in my life, let alone any of these Sheffield Wednesday football contracts. So maybe it's specific in contracts, but you would think we were into some universal statutory right. This is probably a legal thing, not a football contract thing, that, you don't get paid on time. You can up sticks and go. And that's what Michael Smith has done. Big, lanky striker. I say this with absolute love. I think there's a bit of a sense that he's a bagsman in League One and a decent Championship striker, but he's still scored plenty of goals for Sheffield Wednesday. And would you rather have him around, sell him for a fee, or let him leave for nothing? I know which of the three seems the most sensible and best case scenario, and as tends to happen at Hillsborough, we've got the worst case scenario. It does get worse though, because Josh Windass is very good. And I think Sam and I on the check-in, maybe it was the mid-season 11, I think we might have had Windass in it, you know, in one of those three positions off the front. And obviously, famously scored the 124th minute winning goal in the playoff final at Wembley to send Sheffield Wednesday back to the Championship. Big part of the past 2 seasons. Scored that goal from inside his own half last season. He's a good player. He'll no doubt now be picked up by another Championship club. I'm sure his agent's phone is going to be ringing red hot off the hook today. And he is certainly somebody who Sheffield Wednesday can build around. Windass put on his Instagram and his socials that he'll be a Wednesday fan for life. Still thinking about bad news, aren't you? So we're now getting into this situation where it very much looks like, and so the comparison I made before is, do you remember when Blackpool, the Oystons just basically, I don't want to say did what Mr. Chansiri's doing now, but they pulled the money out, didn't they? Kept it for themselves and just let the club kind of rot and go down the divisions. And you'll remember all kinds of problems. And they basically had to go and grab an 11 of loan players and free transfers. And I think you can probably all guess where that Blackpool side finished in the league table. It feels like Sheffield Wednesday are going towards that way. We had an awful situation at Bolton a couple of years ago where they basically had to play their youth team for several games. And I don't know whether there was an agreement between the clubs. They basically lost all the games 5-0. And it could have been 7, 8, 10-0. I think if there hadn't been this, okay, score 5, go easy. They're kids. Take your 3 points, off you go, etc., etc. It's not quite got to that point yet for Wednesday, but the natural conclusion of this, particularly, we're going to be doing payroll in a week or two, aren't we, if they don't get through July. And I always remember Joe Royal saying, you don't want to sign players at the start of the summer because you have to pay those dead wages for 2 months when there's no games going on. But that is the truth now, that you're in this bit where you've got to meet your financial obligations, but there's no kind of gate receipt money coming in, no commercials coming in. Obviously, TV money's distributed, throughout the year. But yes, this is a problematic time, and that squad is now getting very, very threadbare. I'll quote David Brent again. You're still thinking about the bad news. 2 of the embargoes have been lifted now. Remember, there were 3 transfer embargoes. I think this is related to the late payment of salary. But a EFL embargo still remains because of payments to other clubs. So Sheffield Wednesday still are under this fee restriction for the 3 windows or whatever it is. It takes you like 2027. So it's not like, I've already cited what's going to happen for the Blackpool example. It would have to be just out of contract players or loans with literally no loan fee. And I believe they're capped at $7,000 a week in terms of a wage, which I'm sure to you and I would be life-changing. But in terms of challenging in the Championship, isn't going to do masses. And I think Kieran Maguire said to me in our last chat that Wednesday were 4th lowest budget, potentially last load of accounts which came out, which would have been 23-24. So great escape for Wednesday. They were due to be in that position in the table, and it is getting worse. never rains but it pours. Their North Stand safety certificate has not yet been confirmed. And if it's an issue of spending money on said North Stand, you would imagine that won't happen. So will they start the season with not only 3/4 of a squad, but 3/4 of a stadium as well? This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? I mentioned I was optimistic about Danny Roll returning. Well, apparently the players were less kind of chilled out about that than me. I was kind of looking at this big picture of, okay, he's a really good asset and they stand much more chance, I think, of surviving with him than without him. And also, if he were to go, I know people want to work as football managers and there will be loads of people apply for the job, but is anyone really, really credible going to want to manage Sheffield Wednesday under Mr. Chansiri? Probably not. So you'd then have a big drop-off in the dugout from Danny Roll, who I think is very good, to somebody probably significantly less good. And the players, and you can debate this in the comments, apparently the sense is they weren't actually that happy with Danny Roll. I can see it from both sides. I can see Danny Roll's got to look after his career. And if this is a terrible, toxic, awful work environment to be in, then you can argue on the one hand, he was right to kind of go, look, I'm not coming back until these issues get sorted out. You could also argue on the other hand, and I know Barry Bannon has been given plenty of praise for kind of hanging around, that he should have come in and come to work. And he's been being paid. I don't want this to come across churlish, but I will point out, this is factual, that you would consider Barry Bannon is very late in his playing career and Danny Roll is very early in his managerial career. And perhaps it's easier to take the stand that Bannon is taking when you're in the twilight of your career than perhaps when you're at the start of it. But again, let's not fall over ourselves arguing about that. Bigger fish to fry. So, just rank absolute misery, this. This is terrible. And I was naively, or, you know, maybe I am an optimistic idiot. Maybe two things can be true at the same time. I was looking at the best case scenario that takeover would happen, Mr. Chansiri would go, embargo's lifted, Danny Roll stays, and they can fight with the squad that they've got to, have as good a season as they can in the Championship. That appeared to be the best case scenario. I mean, looking at it right now, how can you conclude anything other than that Sheffield Wednesday will finish bottom of the Championship and be relegated to League One? You can't really conclude anything else, can you? Unless some of those things I've just said were going to happen. If the embargo stays, what is Danny Roll, if he indeed stays, supposed to? Let's assume the embargo stays and Mr. Chansiri stays past this transfer window, which would appear to be an absolute disaster. That's another 2 payment runs for July and August as well, and they can't sign anybody. And it looks like maybe the players have got carte blanche to walk out. What are they supposed to do? They were 4th lowest budget, overperforming, and you've essentially now taken Gassama, Masaba, Windass and Smith out basically over the last week, 10 days. They're going to have no players. They're probably going to have no manager. They can't sign anybody. If Mr. Chansiri stays, things might get worse. So then, would there be another points deduction? Would he put it into administration? Lots of people point out in the comments, kind of rightly, why would you, if you've got the funds in the background to do this, and, whether he has or hasn't, he knows. We don't know. It appears he's just pulled the plug on the funding and the family is still pretty wealthy. But why would you run the asset into the ground if you do want to sell it? And there were bidders. And why have these takeovers broken down? I mean, it just sucks to be a Sheffield Wednesday fan, and you have my absolute sympathy. So that's the update on Sheffield Wednesday. In conclusion, it didn't get any better. It's getting worse. And I don't really know how much worse it can get. Because some people would argue that if it went into administration and Chansiri was gone, yes, okay, guaranteed relegation, minus 12 points with no squad. Danny Roll will go. All the contracts will be breached. But some people might argue, well, okay, Chansiri's gone. Net win. Start again in League One next season. And it's going to be a hard old campaign, this one. Probably just going to lose most of the games. But I don't know. What the hell is going to happen next at Sheffield Wednesday? It feels like my optimism for a new owner coming has just gone out the window. Look, I'll come back on here, you know I will, with a big smile saying, right, they've been taken over. Here we go. A new dawn. But until such time as that happens, you can only see things getting worse. Ouch. Horrible. Let me know your thoughts on all of that good stuff. I'll link that last video about Sheffield Wednesday, the vaguely optimistically titled one up there. And this is in no way sarcastic. Here's a video about League One that I made with the great Callum Fowler, a brilliant YouTuber there, which may or may not be pertinent to this conversation in Sheffield Wednesday next season.